When the Soviet Union fell, human rights were supposed to rise from its ashes. And while things did change on paper, for gay Russians, things pretty much stayed the same. Today, gays still face harassment and intimidation from the far right. And there's even talk of sending gays to the Gulag. CBC's Nick Spicer has the story.
It took more than pride. It took courage to take part in the Moscow Gay Pride in May. The mayor didn't give his permission. He said such a demonstration was unacceptable because most Muscovites were against it. When a small number of foreign and Russian demonstrators showed up anyway, Orthodox Church militants were waiting with their icons and their eggs. Men from far-right groups came to satisfy their urge for violence. But the man the police really want to stop is the Gay Pride organizer, Nikolai Alexeyev. Out of jail later, he said the government wasn't doing enough to protect the fundamental rights of gays.
We considered this right to peaceful demonstration as the right on its own, which is given by the Constitution, by the Russian law and the international law, and we have the right to exercise and to go on the street and to demonstrate.
But few Russian gays really seem to care about their rights as a community. Artem Bolshakov and Sergei Polev have been living happily together for 7 years now. They didn't take part in the Gay Pride. They even think it hurt gays here by helping their enemies organize, and they suspect the government is behind it all.
Using these fascists and using these religious people, they're trying to frighten us, to keep us closed, in a closet.
But this far-right parliamentarian thinks the closet is much too comfortable for gays. Nikolai Kuryanovich wants gays and lesbians sent to labor camps to rid Russia of what he calls a Western disease. Western society is going through a major crisis, he says. It's heading towards moral destruction and collapse, and we don't need your sexually sick practices here. That kind of talk is becoming more and more mainstream here, says Igor Khan. He's the leading expert on Russia's gay and lesbian community. Khan says the government tolerance for homophobia is part of the larger rollback of democratic values here.
When the country was developing in democratic direction, there were improvement in public opinion and so and more tolerance to homosexuality, like to many other things.
The spreading anti-gay sentiment in Russia marks a turning point. Gays here had been making major strides forward on the legal front. Under Soviet times, after all, homosexuality was a serious crime.
20 years ago, being openly gay like this in a Moscow nightclub would have got you 5 years in the Siberian Gulag. Homosexuality was considered anti-Soviet and as a disease, treatable with drugs and sex change operations. So unspeakable, in fact, that heterosexual dissidents were accused of being gay to disgrace them. All that changed in 1992, when President Boris Yeltsin made homosexuality legal to boost his democratic credentials with the West. But the government did little to explain why, and the Orthodox Church lobbied hard to get sex education banned in Russian schools. So the Soviet attitudes remained. Nowadays, 2/3 of Russians still consider homosexuality to be a disease or a perversion.
They have a common ideological position.
Khan says those numbers won't change unless Russia's gays take on the religious leaders and extremists and show the government they will be heard.
The next generation of gay activists will have to try to change the situation also by political means, because people who are not fighting for their rights, they will never receive rights.
But Sergei and Artem would rather plan their next vacation in Italy than join the vanguard of community politics. Things, after all, could be much worse.
I became gay when it was also Soviet period still. And it was maybe the most effective Soviet time because the KGB was very powerful and the government was quite powerful. And it didn't prevent me from becoming gay. And that's why I don't care. If I was quite strong to survive those days, it means I will survive forever.
So most Russian gays accept the status quo. They hope the church, the far right, and the government won't do anything against them. But they aren't prepared to do much to take them on. It's an attitude of resignation, one where pride takes a back seat to quiet convenience. Nick Spicer, CBC News, Moscow.